No. Good evening, everyone. We are at 6 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Ready. First of all, we want to just thank you for coming out. We know that the school is back in session. It's busy times for you to carve out time to speak with us today. We greatly appreciate it. This evening, we're going to be discussing the Livable Cities Initiative Gateway Connectivity Study. Initiative looks at mobility in identifying transportation options that enhance pedestrian movement in and throughout our downtown area, or what many of you all know as our downtown overlay district. The city of Fairburn was a recipient of the LCI grant from the Atlanta Regional Commission in the amount of $200,000. The purpose of this study is to build upon the LCI's plan, our downtown master plan, improvements to connect the education campus to downtown and across Broad Street to the south. Updates to the Highway 29 overlay district and allow middle housing, trending restaurants, and also office and entertainment uses. This evening we have our consulting team, Randy Gibbs of Sizemore, all on point. Wilson, AB Advisory Group, Valerie from and Sizemore, Ashley have members of our so I'd our mayor to come up to give greetings.
For taking your coming to give us your as we make every effort in our city, marking this city that would never be erased. Part of that includes your in your input as relates to services and programs that you want. In this particular case, we're talking about our downtown area. That is so imperative for us as we've spent a lot of money in our downtown area with the small business grant for businesses in our effort to basically boost our downtown. We still need residential input and our business owners input, and so that's what this meeting is for. So I want to thank you in advance again for what information that we're going to acquire, but as my standard policy is, we open every meeting in Fairburn with prayer, and so if you don't mind, I'll just do that and then we'll move right on. Father, we come before your presence with thanksgiving. We enter into your course of praise. Father, we thank you. This is a great day you've made. We're truly glad in it. Father, I just ask for every information and every input from every single individual here and those that are on their way. We just ask that right now, dear Father, these ideas, dear Father, and witty inventions, dear Father, that were never deemed possible in the city of Fairburn will manifest abundantly and above what we could imagine or think in your name. Amen. Thank you, sir.
Coming after a man who prays. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. So, good evening, everyone. I'm your MC for the night. My name is Randy Gibbs. But I'm happy to be here on behalf of the Sizemore Group and our consultant team to talk about our Gateway project and to talk about our connectivity project along Broad Street. And so, Sizemore Group, we're a firm. Downtown Atlanta is where we're based. We specialize in architecture, planning, interiors, and engagement. And so we're really here tonight leading an effort based off our planning work, but you really don't care about that. What you really care about is getting to these projects. I want to acknowledge again Mr. Mayor, Mr. Phillips in the back, the administrator, and the rest of the team, Ms. Sylvia, who's been a fantastic partner. The city of Fairburn has been a fantastic partners in us being able to get to know the city, as well as be able to start getting to work. And so we're excited about that. Again, I'm with Sylvia did a great job of introducing some folks, but I want to make sure that we give a shout out to Miss Elizabeth Shin, from Tool as well. She's been a fantastic partner in terms of our transportation planning and things of that nature. But Sizemore, we're going to do a lot of the planning efforts and urban studies and things of that nature. But we're working with the collaborative firm. They're doing our community engagement, so excited about that. Again, Tool's been doing our transportation work, and then KBA, and then we have Ms. Tate here. She's helping us with our housing and market analysis, and so we really do feel like we have a strong team. And then, yeah, my finger might be too big. Moving his wheel too much. But we also have a team here local to Fairburn, our planning advisory group, and we had a very, very rich call a couple weeks ago, helping us get as many people involved and aware of what this plan is all about, getting them excited about this plan in general. And so we're truly excited to be working with various stakeholders, residents, business owners, within the city of Fairburn as we build out this plan. All right. And so before we get too far, I'm asking to make sure that everybody here and everybody online registers for this meeting. Right. So we have a couple of QR codes that are available. This one in particular is for the meeting. We have another one for the survey, but this one is important because, as was mentioned, ARC is helping the city of Fairburn conduct this particular effort, and so they want to make sure that we, as a planning team, as a collective team, are hearing from as many people in the city of Fairburn as possible, and so it's very important that we start to capture who's attending the meetings, who's filling out the surveys, so on and so forth, so we can make sure that everyone truly participates in this, especially those folks who are traditionally harder to reach. And so I want to make sure that folks fill out these QR codes, not only if you're here in the room, right, and we got almost a packed house, kind of feel like a presidential candidate. I tell bad jokes, right? So please bear with me. You don't have to laugh, but just bear with me. And then also, if you're online, the QR code is available. So if you can, please complete the QR code. And if it's not, if you would rather, fill out a sheet of paper. We do have some sheets of paper in the event that you would like to fill it out that way. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. I see the QR code. Okay. So our scope of work. This is a scope of work for our project. It's to assess the existing conditions down here in Fairburn, primarily in the LCI area, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We're conducting the feasibility study, and so that's what the work that we're doing with our consultant partners. And our job is to have an extensive outreach, and so that's the reason why we're meeting with the community. We're going to pop-up events. And we're going to be doing some stakeholder interviews, things of that nature, meeting with mayor, council, and administrators as well. Our charge is to draft 2 conceptual plans for the educational campus, and so we'll do that because that's our charge. We'll work with our consultant partners to do the transportation analysis, identify opportunities for arts and placemaking, and then look for opportunities as well to improve connectivity along US 29, aka Broad Street. And then our charge is to develop a citywide implementation plan for this particular initiative. So it's one thing to have plans, it's another thing to see the plans in action. And so our charge is to come up with a 100-day action plan to implement the recommendations that we put forward, not only for the Gateway area on the educational campus, but then also for Broad Street. And so again, project goals, very much the same things that I just said. So we'll keep it moving from there. We started this project, we were awarded this project back in May of 2024. We look forward to all the engagement throughout this process. We will have a second community meeting in November before we come out with recommendations that we'll bring back for the community in February. And then afterwards, we'll wrap up the project in March. And so that's the tentative time frame. You see all the action steps. We talk on a bi-weekly basis, and we'll have stakeholder interviews, and we'll come out. We've already done a bus tour. That was fantastic. So a lot of steps that go into making this plan. The bottom line is we're going to aim to be finished with the plan in March of 2025, okay, and more of the steps. All right, and so without further ado, right, I know you're very excited to see and hear from somebody from ARC, so I'm gonna bring up my good colleague from ARC, and she will give us a little bit of introduction in terms of what the LCI project is all about. So, Lauren Blasewicz, you don't mind? Blasek, sorry. That's why I was stuttering.
That's okay. Hi, no applause necessary. I'm Lauren Blazek with the Atlanta Regional Commission. I am the Livable Centers Initiative, or LCI, program manager at ARC. I'm also the project manager for ARC on this project. So I'm here to just monitor things and make sure Randy's doing his job, which is not always easy, but just kidding. No, Sizemore is great. But yeah, we're really excited to see Fairburn. I actually grew up on the south side in Fayetteville, but it's really cool to see like how far Fairburn has come over the years, and really, I think the LCI program has been a huge part of that, and so we're really excited to see y'all continue to build on the good work that's being done here. We're celebrating 25 years of the LCI program, so program started back in 1999, 2000 timeframe to really look at ways to create more livable, walkable communities around the metropolitan Atlanta area, and there's almost 130 LCI areas around now, and we're really proud of that. So anyway, I'm really happy to be here. Like I said, Randy and his team are doing a great job so far. Thank you, City of Fairburn, for being a part of this program and continuing your great work. And I'm handing it back to you. Awesome, thanks.
So I will say that this is a very competitive grant, right? And if you heard Sylvia in the beginning, this is something that gets leveraged, right? So for all of the money that the City of Fairburn puts in, ARC supplements them, was it 4-to-1 or something like that? Well, it's 80-20. Right. So there you go. So, and these are competitive. These cities apply for these on a regular basis, annual basis, and Fairburn won. And so Fairburn is a bunch of winners. That's no joke. And I do like hanging out with winners, so I might keep coming out here. All right, so what's a gateway? What's a gateway? So I'm gonna pull out, this is my example, this is my tool. It's not a bunch of Tic Tacs. All right, bad joke. I'm telling you, they're coming. All right, so look, let's pretend this is Sylvia's car. And you can tell, if you're looking at my pen close enough, she's riding on chrome. All right, there you go. All right, so let's pretend she's coming from Union City and she wants to get to Palmetto. All right, let's pretend. And she's taking US 29, AKA Broad Street, okay? And so she needs help, right, about where she's going along the way. But she knows she's gonna go through downtown Fairburn, right? And so she's calling her friend, I won't use the mayor. She's calling her friend Mike, right? She's like, hey, Mike, I'm coming down from Union City, headed down to Palmetto on US 29. I know I'll hit downtown Fairburn when. I know I'll hit downtown Fairburn. That's the whole point of a gateway. That's the whole point of a gateway, right? The point of a gateway is to let you know where you are. And so what we're excited about is the opportunity to create a gateway for the city of Fairburn, particularly on the educational campus. The educational campus, for all intents and purposes, is the Global Impact Academy, Georgia Military College, And so that's the area of the gateway. And so what we're trying to do is come up with not one, but two. Master plan concepts for, that's my colleague Ashlyn with my camera. Make sure I get that camera back, y'all. But we're coming up with two master plan concepts for the gateway area so that you'll hit downtown Fairburn when you cross this thing that y'all people are gonna think about tonight. So we want you to think big, okay? And so I have some examples of some big gateways across not only the country but the world. There's one in Los Angeles, so that represents your entrance into Chinatown. Everyone's familiar, or most folks should be familiar with the St. Louis Arch, right? Which is in, oh, Nellie's in the house. Congratulations. Shout out to you. All right. There's a gateway. Welcome to, there's that gateway for the gateway to India, which is out there in Mumbai. Persepolis is a gateway, an ancient gateway it's in Iran. You got the gateway there in Las Vegas, that you know, the double arches, so you know you're in Las Vegas then. And then you have the four horsemen on top of those columns in Berlin. And so those are world famous gateways, so to speak, right? Or recognizable gateways. We want to do something similar for Fairburn. We want a world famous Fairburn gateway, right? So think like that. And you'll know you'll be in Fairburn when you cross this gateway, all right? All right, so that's half of what we're doing. We're going to create 2 of those plans. We're going to create just one connectivity plan, not that connectivity is less important. But what we're trying to do here is make sure that US 29, AKA Broad Street, AKA Main Street, in the city of Fairburn is well connected for pedestrians and for cyclists alike. And so we know that there's been a lot of studies on US 29 Broad Street about how to make improvements. We also know that this is always going to be a corridor where heavy trucks and vehicles are going to go back and forth. We know that there are underpasses which heavy trucks and vehicles get stuck. That's interesting. And it's newsworthy. But we also know that there's ways to make improvements, and so we will look at creating those types of improvements, whether it be pedestrian, wayfinding, ADA accessibility, creating improvements with the bike infrastructure along US 29, creating light, making it safer. So you have lighting and protected walkways and things of that nature, so creating the safety piece, or looking at the zoning and seeing if there's zoning and land use changes that need to be made. These are some of the things that we will be thinking about. We encourage you to give us your inputs as well, right? Because you are here on a daily basis. You are here walking up and down and living in Fairburn. So we want to make sure that we get your input. That's why your presence here is so important. And so we're going to go through a quick blitz of economic development, we're going to go through a quick blitz of existing conditions, letting you know what we've seen thus far, looking at various documents, and then looking at various maps. And so we are excited to present some of that because that's going to inform what we put on the gateway. It's going to inform how we do the connectivity. And so without further ado, I'm going to ask Ms. Tate to come on up and take the mic. Everybody, Ms. Tate from KBA.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. It's nice to be in Fairburn. Our firm, KB Advisory, has been working on the Economic Development Strategic Plan update, so we are familiar and glad to be a part of this great team. We are definitely the numbers side of things, and I might have less jokes than Randy, but it's important to have context as a planner and understanding where's the market today, where could the market go, and what does that mean for the growth in Fairburn. And so all of those are equally as important as what the gateway looks like, because it has to do with the impacts that we will have on a community. And so just thinking and looking back at the growth that's been happening in the city of Fairburn, the LCI area has almost kept pace with that, growing 45% in the last, since 2010, outpacing that of southern Fulton County. This is the southern part of Fulton County outside of the city of Atlanta. So you think of your peer cities here in South Fulton. Thinking about it from our average household size, so these graphics are a little tough to look at, but the point here being that the makeup is actually pretty contiguous across the board. So you've got your small, medium, and large households, half of which are small. And so when we think about our housing stock that exists today and the housing stock that we need, is there the right mix here if we are adding housing units that are needed, both within the metro and nationally? What is the right mix to hit affordability and household size? finally looking at kind of educational attainment and median household income. Both of these are tracking along the same lines as the regions that we're comparing them against. But I think that there's something that's sticking out here. 18% of the residents within the LCI boundary have higher than a high school degree compared to 31 and 37 within the city and in the southern part of the county. And I think there's, you know, part of, I've been in the economic development strategic planning mode, and so when I look at this, I think there's a lot of opportunity for upskilling. I think some of the programs at the city and the partnerships that could be leveraged could really help within this particular area, and that's something to keep in mind. And speaking of jobs, looking at the commuting in and the commuting outbound, very few residents live and work within the LCI area. And so that also contributes to a live, work, play, mixed use development, in that you do have, you know, this rush of traffic and those leaving, and then those that are coming in for the daytime are replacing those residents who have left for work. And so all of those kind of contribute into thinking about what are the interventions going forward, and if this area does see change, how does that dynamic play into it? Skipping here to the real estate side of things, so more so looking at the commercial real estate on, for me, my left side, and for you the right, so flip that. I think one really important thing to understand here is, out of the entire city, this LCI area is the office and retail core. So 75% of the retail by square footage that exists within the city exists in this LCI. And a lot of it is historic. A lot of it needs some preservation and updating. There is relatively low vacancy for that's on the market. I understand in real time there may be some vacant spaces that aren't showing up because they're not on the market. That's just knowing that from doing work here for almost a year now. So I get that that's kind of a misnomer maybe to say that there's lower vacancy when there is available space that's just not being marketed. The inventory is aging. You know, there is some historic character that exists there, but there's also some, you know, obsolescent retail that exists within the LCI area. And despite not adding a lot of inventory, the rents are rising. And so thinking about the mix of local businesses that can afford that, but also be in quality space with quality retailers that you want in your community is kind of the perfect storm when we're thinking about how does redevelopment of an area impact what services are offered to the residents and for those who are working here and those who are visiting as they go to the Renaissance Festival, or, you know, are attracted down to the south side as it continues to grow. On the residential side, you have the same kind of persistent aging infrastructure of housing here. So your average owner-occupied housing is about 26 years old, with renter-occupied housing at about 39. Both have seen increases in price, with for sale within the LCI being right around $300,000. That's new and resale, with the majority of that being resale. A couple of new construction in there, but very few. And so even with that, you're seeing, you know, a doubling of prices since 2018, which tracks with what we're seeing in other parts of the metro. So it is a problem, but not a geographically isolated problem. And so there are some other resources to tap into, and other communities to look for how they've dealt with that and what could be adopted here. On the rental side, rents increasing 54% just within the LCI. And I think that's important to understand too, you know, as we're thinking about the replacement of units or the addition of units, how will that impact what's currently available here, and is there a shortage? What are the price dynamics that exist? So those, I'm forecasting what we'll be kind of digging deeper into, and where are the lenses for our side of this team. And I will pass it back to Randy. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to go over the study areas just a little bit more. Again, this is the education campus, same as what is shown there on that board. So that's the education campus. This is the study area, and so the study area includes the corridors along Broad Street, as well as by the schools, and extends from the education campus all the way down to the police station. Okay, and so that's kind of the extent of the study area for this particular project. But we're also looking at the overlay, and the overlay includes this geography, right? And so we're taking into consideration the roads that are coming in, Campbellton, Fayetteville, Rivertown as well. Everything within the LCI boundary is what we're taking a look at in terms of connectivity, so on and so forth. Or that's what we're hyper-focused on, right? So hyper-focused on Broad Street and in the LCI area, but certainly those things that are just outside, AKA the Georgia Renaissance Festival site, AKA some of the areas by Duncan Park and the like, we're looking at trying to figure out, where connectivity makes sense as well. So, but this is the area, the downtown overlay boundary. And so we'll take a look at the land use analysis and for the most part, this is a town center mixed use. That means there's a desire to have mixed uses up and down Broad Street and within the area in general. And so we're making sure that what we make recommendations for align with this particular land use. It seems to be very consistent with what we've heard. And then we've looked at the zoning as well thus far, and we see a lot of commercial activity up and down Broad Street. We also see some residential areas within the LCI boundaries. And so, again, these are the elements of the existing conditions analysis that we're taking into consideration. And then we're also looking at who owns what, right? So some parcels of land are easier to move if they are owned by public entities. Sometimes they're a little bit more difficult based off of which public entity owns it. So we're taking a look at who owns what throughout the district so that we can make reasonable plans, especially along the gateway area. And so, and then we've also been talking to your team. And so not only have we been working with Ms. Sylvia, but we've been working with Mr. Tommy, with Mr. Lester. And with that, he has provided us with a lot of the plans that the new sidewalks that are coming down Fairview, the bike paths, this is showing that are coming over the next couple of years. And so very excited to be working with the team and taking a look at those plans as well. And so here are some key takeaways that we've gotten thus far from the existing conditions, is that there's just a lot of exciting opportunities that are coming and that they exist. Based off of the plans that we've looked at thus far, there's a desire for film. We've already talked a little bit about the tunnels. We see that there are bike trails coming and that there's a desire for sports fields and there's sports fields and that there are vacant classrooms as well that are available in the new downtown campus. And so excited about what those could be, that there are desires for improved connections, which that's what this whole project is all about. There's a desire for more green space and a linear park. We've seen that in some of the plans. There's a strong and a consistent desire to connect to the communities, both Lightning, South Broad, and West Downtown, that neighborhood as well, making sure that they stay connected to Broad Street, restore and activate Broad Street storefronts. And so excited about that because it's interesting to see what is consistent in those other plans, that we're not just creating things out the blue, that it certainly isn't. We want to be able to speak to Fairburn, what Fairburn has already said, and continue to elevate those desires. And so that's what we're doing. But Broad Street is going to remain a very highly trafficked corridor with heavy vehicles because this is an industrial route. So we understand that, but we can make it safer. And then we want to connect. And so, as was mentioned, the Renaissance Festival, that's there. They look like they're having fun, even the man in the mask. But that fun piece is something to leverage, right? And so the fact that Fairburn has a lot of fun, we were here for a National Night Out, had a lot of fun there. And then apparently every third Friday, y'all have a lot of fun in your town green. And so that's something to leverage as well. But then things like this, and I know I'm kind of stealing a little bit of your thunder, but when you get a letter signed by, what's it, John Ossoff, United States Senator, you know, talking about he's going to give you millions of dollars to put up a pedestrian bridge, that's something to leverage, right? And that shows first of all, not every city gets that. So thank you, Senator, for it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, there's some momentum down here. And again, that just demonstrates that there's some winning happening in Fairburn. We're excited to be a part of it. And so these are the plans that we've been looking through. Won't belabor those, but there's just a lot of plans that we're going through as part of our research. And then we went through on a site visit, on a site tour with your team, and these are some of the places that we went to visit as well. Yeah, some of those are within the LCI boundary, some of them are not. The Durham Lakes community, we passed by there. The Georgia Renaissance Festival site, we passed by there. And so again, trying to make sure that we connect Main Broad Street. We're trying to connect. That's the point. We're trying to connect, and we're trying to connect it for the benefit of all of Fairburn. And so with this, I'm gonna turn it over to Miss Elizabeth, and she will talk about the transportation analysis that we've done thus far. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Sorry, I'm a lot shorter than the rest of you guys. So talking through some of the existing conditions we've looked at from a transportation perspective, like Randy mentioned, we've looked at a bunch of the previous plans that have been done, and they've talked about some of the sidewalk networks they want to get built out and that are already underway, thinking about transit access along US 29 and thinking about the safety, how to have people cross the street safely, how to walk and bike and use the transit along that corridor, lightly looking at the bicycle recommendations and what facilities those entail, mentioning the gateway treatments as well. When do you hit downtown Fairburn? Also thinking through wayfinding, signage, and just overall crossing that US 29 Broad Street area and railroad tracks. So one of the things we looked at and we created, and is in the back corner over there, is a crash map, and it walks through the locations of the crashes within the LCI area. And you can see those hot spots that start to appear, particularly at Campbellton and Broad Street, major intersection in that area. You can also see there's a couple pedestrian-related crashes, one of which being a fatality on the northern end of the LCI. So the crash data we pulled from the state's records for the past 5 years, so 2019 to 2023 roughly. There were 4 pedestrian crashes, like I mentioned, and most of the crashes are happening at intersections, and the ones that are happening at intersections tend to result in either fatalities or serious injuries. And a lot of those crashes, like you saw on the map, are happening on Campbellton Street as well as Broad Street. And for crash data, it's normally ranked from, it's called CABCO, so K is a fatality, a crash resulting in a death. A is then serious injuries, working all the way down to O, it's just property damage only. So that's what the understanding of that map is in this table. One of the other things we looked at was your level of traffic stress, and this is what it pertains to when people are cycling, and sometimes you can think about it also as walking. So you are gonna feel less comfortable biking and walking on a side of a 4-lane highway, right? So that means your traffic stress is gonna be a lot higher for that roadway. So we want to plan spaces that are for all ages and all abilities, and that are at lower stress, to think through that network of having people walking and biking. Yes, you're gonna have people that maybe bike and they're the spandex crowd and they don't care about biking on a 4-lane roadway. Yeah. So this is a visual representation of what that level of traffic stress looks like in the LCI area. Not surprisingly, those roads that have a lot of the crashes also have heavy traffic, have a lot of freight, and so that red color is those roads that is really, really stressful for people to bike and walk on. So some of the ongoing projects that have been mentioned, you have that RAISE grant you got for the safety improvements. You have sidewalks getting built across the area. There's coordinating, trying to get that safe crossing across Broad Street, the Duncan Park Road extension, as well as just overall resurfacing and opportunities for leveraging that resurfacing to add bicycle facilities. Opportunities to improve connectivity. So this is part of what we, like tool design when we're talking about transportation, that we're interested in hearing from you guys. We want to know like bicycle recommendations and facilities and locations, and thinking about that LTS network and thinking about opportunities for pedestrians and cyclists to safely cross the road, safely get around to those key destinations. Like the education center, schools and parks throughout the area. US 29's been mentioned a lot, obviously for good reasons. So we want to be able to think through what opportunities there are, how can you accommodate for other users other than just the freight traffic that's using it. Thinking about like a gateway component is like welcoming people who are not only driving into the city, but might be walking and biking into the city, into the downtown area. And then thinking about opportunities along those key routes to safely cross, and just safety countermeasures in general, looking at key intersections as it relates to preventing crashes in the future. I think that's it. I'll pass it back to Randy. But if you have any transportation questions, let me know.
All right. So we're almost finished with the formal briefing, so stay with us, okay? Again, we have an extensive community engagement plan that we're underway with. So we have an online flyer, a web page that's now up and running, and it's associated with the city of Fairburn, so look out for that if you haven't already. We're going to start posting more on social media, so look out for that as well. And we'll be adding information in the Fairburn Connect, providing content with that. This will be the first of 3 community meetings. The next one is going to be a design charrette, and so we're excited to hear your ideas today, so that we could come up with some basic concepts that we will come back to the community with and say, okay, well, where should we do this? How should we do this? And there'll be a little bit of interactive designing going on during our next meeting in November, before we provide some initial recommendations in February. And then we'll be briefing City Council. I think we'll be here next week at the Mayor and City Council meeting to let them know what our progress is. And so we're excited about that. I have stakeholder interviews, so we talked to the project advisory group. We talked a little bit about them as well. So one of the things, I don't know if you saw all the names. I know the chart, and you have small letters and eyes and font, things like that. Hard for me sometimes. And so with that being said, we have a lot of principals, right? And so we have Landmark Christian, we have Global Impact Academy, we have Campbell Elementary School, and then we had Georgia Military College. So we had principals on board, and they said, hey, we think our children might be interested in participating in this project, right? And so we're excited about that because that's another avenue to get input, especially when all cities are trying to compete to retain children and raise them and make sure that these are safe places for them to come back to after they go on to college and come back and raise their families. And so we're very excited to get the input of our young people. But we want to hear from you as well if there are other stakeholder groups that we need to engage throughout this process, especially while we're still thinking really, really big. The second meeting, we're going to bring you back to reality a little bit. But for now, think big and think big about what you want to see for downtown Fairburn. There are pop-up events, like I mentioned. We were here for National Night Out. That was a fantastic opportunity, but we're looking to do at least one, maybe two more throughout this process to make sure that we're hearing from folks who can't always come to a community meeting such as this. And so we're very much excited about it. So share that this project is going on, and share that we really, truly, indeed want to get the community, want to hear from the community, get their opinion, especially folks who can't always come to a meeting such as this. Just kind of ran through this already, but the point of this particular slide is that we will be doing a charrette, more hands-on type activity back in, in November. So we're excited about that. The site's to be determined, so stay tuned. And then, yeah, I'm just hitting this hard. Same thing. We're gonna meet again in November. Want to make sure that we hear from community. All right, and so now we're gonna go through an exercise so everybody gets to get up a little bit, walk around, and look at these boards. And so I'll just start from your right, my left. Again, you have the crash severity map, and then you have the LCI study area, and so that just gives you context with respect to what we're looking at, the area that we're looking at. The visual inspiration, again, is set up so that you could think big as it pertains to gateways in particular. So everything on the left is about gateways. Think big about what you would like to see on the gateway side, just to start thinking. And then your connectivity inspiration is what do you think we need to put on Broad Street in order to make it more accessible for folks, right? And think about yourself, think about your neighbors, think about folks who may have a different pedestrian experience, a different cycling experience than you. What do you think Broad Street needs? And so that's your opportunity to be inspired. And then what we want you to do on these boards behind me, or at least these three boards, is to identify where do you live, where do you work, where do you play, where do you eat, where do you shop in the areas shown, right? So it's mostly along the spine of Broad Street, but we want to make sure that we're identifying those locations that we need to connect to, right? And then we'll take that data to say, okay, well, how can we make those connections better? And so that's what these three boards are for. And then again, this board right here is to help us come up with not one, but two concepts for Broad Street. And so we have a preferred and we have a not preferred. Green is for preferred, green means go, red means don't do. And so what I'm gonna ask is that you put, since we have two that we would like to see, or two concepts, I'm gonna ask that you put two preferred preferences and then only one not preferred in terms of what you wanna see. And because of what Tate said, we know that there's because of what Tate said, we know that there's some housing issues that are to be considered. There's some jobs to be considered. We know because of the different types of festivals that are happening, there's some entertainment opportunities to be considered. Because of some of the visual inspirations, there's some signage, perhaps some parks, some green space opportunities to be considered. Some mixed-use retail considerations may be considered, as well as some artwork and monuments, or it might be something totally different, right? That because y'all are more creative than I am, right? And you could figure out, hey, this is what I want to see as a gateway. Feel free to ad-lib a little bit and then provide us with your ideas as well. And then if you have any comments whatsoever, please feel free, or if you want to answer those questions, feel free to answer those questions with the sticky notes. And then we have a sheet of paper if there is something that you want to say that we haven't solicited directly. And so this is an opportunity to hear from you about what you would like to see at the Gateway and the Education Campus, as well as along Broad Street, which is your spine, your downtown, your Main Street. And so we want to make sure that we are capturing as much as we can in terms of accessibility in that regard. And with that, okay, so there is a survey. This is right, yeah. So there is a survey that there should be a QR code for as well. So that's another element of us trying to capture data. So make sure you complete the survey and then just be aware of all the other engagements that we'll have. And then I just want to give Ms. Sylvia Abernathy a shout out because she's been our point of contact, making sure that we navigate this process fairly well. And then if you have any questions for me, my name is Randy Gibbs. I'm with the Sizemore Group, and I have cards. I can distribute that if you want to be in touch. But Sylvia is your main point of contact. All right? So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking because I talk too much, and I'm going to get you to hear. So you can get up, start looking at the boards, and start engaging. Any questions for me? Any questions for anybody? Praise the Lord. All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I heard you say that for certain areas, you'll need to consult businesses where you may need to, I'm assuming, take land, property, to accommodate some of these developments. And I heard you say, and it sounded a little glazed over, that would not only just include businesses that are properties that would be impacted, but potentially residential. So I own a home on Rivertown Road within the LCI, and I am very concerned about what that impact would be to private residents. Can you elaborate more on what these developments, how they will impact the current infrastructure, what we see today, understanding that the downtown storefront is not the most useful right now. There are several spots that we could have potential, companies there, vendors there, restaurants or what have you. Mm-hmm. How will it impact literally the actual ground we walk on? How will it impact people's residents? Are you going to take people's front yards to put in sidewalks? Like, help us understand what that impact might be.
Okay. So I don't need to repeat that, do I? All right. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, right? At this point of this particular project, we're visioning, right? So we're coming up with ideas with what we would like to see on Rivertown, what we would like to see on Broad Street, what we would like to see on the education campus. So nothing that we come up with tonight, right, is gonna be executed on tomorrow. Whatever we do come up with, at some point will be adopted by the city, right? And we'll have extensive opportunities for community engagement, right? And so we're gonna have the opportunity for the creative session in November, and then we'll make our recommendations in February, okay? And so there's opportunities to provide comment throughout that process, okay? And then once adopted, there needs to be studies to see what is actually feasible from an engineering perspective, right? And so that would be where any potential for takings or eminent domain or things of that nature, what the hydrological impacts are gonna be, where those water go, or now do we have a flooding issue, things of that nature. That study will take place very thoroughly through the city's administrative processes such that it is not adversely impacting citizens unbeknownst, right? So that's just the process of the way these things go. So at this point, again, it's just visioning, right? What would you like to see? And then there is a long process. Matter of fact, I mean, there are some things that could be done from a very pop-up or intermittent type, just, hey, we're gonna do this, it's not gonna have a negative impact whatsoever. But those things that have larger consequences that will be permanent will require a lot more study than the conversation tonight. Yes, sir.
So if I could add just a little bit. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Phillips. I'm the city administrator here in Fairburn. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how we got to where we are tonight. So we went through a solicitation process where we solicited, once we got the award from ARC, to find a partner to help us go through this process. And much as Randy just explained, central in that solicitation when we reached out for partners to help us do this was what we're doing tonight, community engagement. What we're trying to do is create a general set of goals or a roadmap, if you will, that we will use as a guide to make decisions moving forward. So there are no decisions made at this point. This is really listening to our residents and our businesses to say, here's what we like, here are things we're not so good about, here are things we think we should be focused on. And so it really is kind of starting with a blank slate. And so I can tell you that no one has as a goal to impact private residents. But we also know that development has regional impacts, and so we have to think through what does that look like. So I would tell you that we're at the very infancy of this process, which is why we need to hear your voices now so that we can start in the right place so that we can end up in the right place. Does that make sense?
And I appreciate the context. I'm on Rivertown between here and Duncan Park, and I understand that, growth and expansion is important and key to bringing in businesses and families and legacy families where people will buy here and their families, their grown kids will come back here after they graduate college. I understand the importance of that. And so I am very much interested in the process and glad to hear that this is just the very beginning. I might have missed some context on that when I arrived, but my concern is very much that Duncan Park is a destination place in Fairburn, and just recently visited a park in Kennesaw, and I'm like, wow, this could be Duncan one day. There's lots available. So I just appreciate the context, especially for individuals who can't make meetings like this evening due to work or other commitments. So thank you for sharing additional
Absolutely,
context. for the
absolutely.
plan.
Your question was very appropriate, and so I'm glad to be able to share that context. For those of you who may have seen the last council meeting, we presented a Parks Master Plan that a separate consultant helped us develop over about the last year. And it's got some very exciting things for Duncan Park, right? It is our flagship park, but it also speaks to a park system, right? If you live on the other side of 85 in Fairburn, there are no parks. And so at some point, that's something we probably need to look at and figure out what do those amenities look like over there. And so it really is an opportunity for us to vision. I grew up about 15 minutes down Highway 29 in College Park, and my family moved there in the early 70s. And much like Fairburn, it doesn't look like it did when I grew up, right? And so change typically happens. What we're trying to do is figure out, working with our residents, what does that need to look like? Because when you don't have a roadmap or a plan, things kind of develop sometimes in a haphazard way. There's really not a lot of thought behind it. And so that's kind of what we're hoping to do, is put a little thought behind it so that we can keep everything that our residents feel is important to Fairburn while figuring out what does growth look like. Because like I said, it typically happens. Things just don't typically stay the same, right? And so hopefully collaboratively listening to our residents, we can figure out a plan to make the best of our opportunities moving forward. Right. Randy, back to you.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Hello,
ahead.
my name is Nakira Cheney. So, one, I did read the LCI master plan. I thought it was really great opportunity for growth, while also preserving the historic charm of this location and giving reverence to that first and above all. For the talk about bringing in business owners, and one of the things I was reading, it talked about using for the development of retail, using just small areas, or specifically it said it wanted to, that the study area will be likely focused on smaller users in and near historic downtown. So just when you talk about smaller users, I just wanted to know a little bit about what that looks like, especially as we have business owners that's here in the community that may be looking to definitely have an opportunity to open up their business in that quarter.
If you generally look at Main Street corridors, and this is probably a well-worn phrase, but it's accurate, small businesses are really the driver of Main Street communities, right? So there may be opportunities down the road in different areas of the city to look at. I hear a lot of requests from our residents about a grocery store, right? And that's a different process. But if you look at Main Street corridors, it is really anchored more often than not by small businesses. All of you know we have some vacant spaces in our downtown corridor. We're working through that process and trying to figure out how do we take better advantage of the space that is available. and then craft a plan like the one we're talking about that really centers on small businesses, at least as a starting point. As the city grows, and it is growing, it grew about 30% over the last census. And so growth is continuing from all the indications we see. As the city grows, will it open up doors for other opportunities? Likely, that's typically what happens. But right now, as a Main Street community, the focus really starts with kind of small businesses and figuring out what do those need to look like and how do they best fit into what Fairburn is today and where Fairburn is going.
I like that. So with that being said, you are focusing on, there's an intentional focus on pulling forward small business owners that are here in the community?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did that's kind of related to this was we had a small business grant program that we've done over the last year that I think topped out at about $400,000. Businesses in Fairburn could get up to $25,000 each under qualification conditions to support small businesses. You can't have a Main Street and not support small businesses. The two are kind of inextricably linked. And so one helps the other. And so, yes, there is a focus on small business. Now, I will tell you, that doesn't mean that it's exclusive to small businesses, right? But you'll see small businesses as always being core in that. And so as you walk through this process, you'll see some examples of things like mixed-use developments, which you start to see in areas like ours, which include both housing and small businesses. And so there are different creative ways of doing that. It's building that roadmap so we can figure out what does that need to look like in Fairburn. Yes, ma'am. Randy, you were supposed to come back and get the mic.
All right. Call me Randy Watson. All right. So thank you all. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate the questions. And so now we will ask you to get up, take a look at our boards, and provide your comment on the boards as. Kidding.
Provide the comments on the board, excuse me. When you ask us to provide the comments on the board, are you asking us to give a parent that to write down what we want? Or you mentioned something about the dots, so I just want to make
sure.
So
we have color-coded dots, right? And so when you get up here, green will be live and so on and so forth, right? And so we're going to ask you if these dots apply to you here, apply them to the board. And then if you have comments about, well, this will be your preference board, right? So you have two green and you have one red that you can apply to any one of these spaces of what you would like to see as your gateway, right? That's the area that is here, right? So your gateway is highlighted. Getting a little bit of feedback, so here you go, sir. All right. So on this board, your gateway is in yellow, okay? This is the educational campus, all right? So this is your gateway. We are gonna ask on this board what you would like to see in this yellow area on that board, okay? And so that's your gateway, because remember, when Sylvia's driving from Union City and she's talking to Mike in her car, sitting on Chrome, just had an accident, right? So let's make sure we tell Elizabeth, right? All right, but when she's in her car, she knows when she'll get to Fairburn when she crosses some gateway that you're gonna come up with 5 years from now, because it's not gonna happen tomorrow, all right? Not without your approval, all right? So, that's, oh. All right. That's what it sounds like when I'm not telling jokes. All right. So look, but that's when you cross your gateway here. So what this board will provide is, hey, we want to know what you would like to see as your preference or your big idea as a gateway. And these are some topics, but perhaps your topics isn't listed here. So you could use, we have some extra Post-it notes. And then we have this board that talks about connectivity, right? But then we have this board that allows you to just talk because it's blank, right? So if you just have something to say, just say it here, okay? So that's what these boards are all about. But the gateway, just so everyone is tracking, it's this area where Global Impact Academy is, where Georgia Military College is, so on and so forth, okay? Okay. All right. And so I just got a cue. Again, please make sure that you've signed in today, right? You could sign in via the QR code. This is the QR code to sign in. And if you would like to sign in on paper via paper copy, please take the paper copy. Miss Valerie from the collaborative firm, she's collecting those. And so if you've signed a paper copy or filled out a paper copy, please give that back to her. We really want to know who's participating in these meetings. Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am. That's exactly what I want to give to Miss Valerie. Just be careful, because she paper cuts easy. Don't throw nothing at her, please. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. Thank you.